Present, ma'am. Yeah, it's live now. Stuti.
Okay.
Woo! Yay!
Yay!
Super. Hi, guys. Good evening. I hope all of you are safe. And thank you for joining this Facebook Live session. As you can see, it's a full screen. Ekdam online classroom lag rahi hai. There's so many people. But we're so happy we managed to get all of them together. So adjusting to the new normal. This is a phrase all of us are fed up of, but there's no way we cannot use it because we're all coping with it. And we right now are here because a very unique digital online festival is on as we speak. So we are a global film festival where 21 of the world's top film festivals are part of this, and the only festival from India that is invited, which is Mami. We're so proud. Yes, absolutely. And Talia. Which is why we have the Mami show right here. So I am Stuti and मैं attendance लेने वाली हूँ सबकी. तो कौन present है मुझे बता दे. सबसे पहले the co-moderator for the evening, Shoiban Chatterjee, are you present?
Yeah, I am present, ma'am.
Super. We have, of course, artistic director Mami Smriti Kiran, the one who curated the 4 amazing festivals. She is present. Vidya Balan.
Hello.
She has produced an amazing short film and she's acted in it, Nutcut. Thank you so much, Vidya, for being here. We have Ishika Mohan Motwani. We know her as a photographer. She's acted in another amazing short film called Awake. And now we want to know if that's the plan. That's the career change that has happened. Also, we have board member and producer Vikramaditya Motwani. Thank you.
Hello.
Vikram. And the amazing 4 filmmakers of the 4 films that represent India at the festival. So we have the 2 feature films, of course, Ibali O and Pratik Vats, who has butterflies in his stomach because as we speak at 4:30 India time is when Ibali O premiered and people are watching it. How are you feeling?
It's very exciting. It's very, very exciting and unnerving because you're not around to see anything, how sound is playing out.
We have Atul Mongia, the director of Awake.
Hi.
He is present. We have Arun Karthik, the director of another amazing film, Nasir. There's so much to talk about this film. Hi, Arun.
Hello.
So Arun is joining us all the way from Coimbatore, which is a green zone. Good for you. And we have Shan Vyas, the director of Nutcut. Again, a short film where there's so much to say about, so much to discuss. So, sabse pehle, the question that I want to ask is to the artistic director, Smriti. You managed to curate these 4 absolutely fabulous films. Now, the reason I'm constantly repeating myself is I've seen it and I've absolutely loved. But talk us through the process of how did you select these 4 films that now go on to represent India at this global film festival?
See, I think Stuti, the challenge for us always is to kind of put out there the diverse talent that we have in India and the relevant and different kind of film cultures that exist in India. So I think all 4 films, because you watch them, you know that first of all these are all creators who are second-time filmmakers. And secondly, the thing is, each film deals with something very urgent and relevant to India. Mm-hmm. So if you have the devastation of communal violence in one film, you've also got the absurdity of the way that we deal with the problem and the migrant crisis, which we are dealing with right now, in Pratik's film. Then we have patriarchy and the kind of grassroots level work that is needed to kind of, to combat that. It's how do you change the narrative, and Nutcut hence becomes a very important film. Yeah. And then we've got Awake that deals with, that is not just a caregiver story. I just want to put it out there because I get those reactions all the time, but it's a deeper story about love and possession. And I think they're first of all very Indian films, so we've gone for authenticity, but they deal with things that will find resonance across the world. So we felt that these would be the four films that would represent India and represent the kind of filmmaking that is happening in India very aptly and ably on an international platform of this level.
Shobal, you want to?
Yeah. My question is to Vidya. I mean, this is Natkat is your first short film as an actor, and you also produced it. So what was it about the screenplay that excited you so much that you came on board in two capacities?
I felt when Shan first came to me, I thought the story really grabbed me. Because, there's so much conversation about gender equality, about parenting and its role in changing the way we see women, not just as men, but also as women. How do we perceive ourselves? All of those things. So when the story came to me, I was like, wow, this is such a fantastic way to, story. In the film, there's this mother who I play, who's telling her child a story, and through that story, she's trying to change his understanding and perception of women, of relationships, gender equality, everything, basically teaching him that we're all children of the same God. So I thought it was beautifully written, very simple and yet very powerful. So I felt I definitely want to be part of this. And if I may be absolutely candid, Ronnie Screwvala, who's also producer on the film, he actually told me, he said, I don't have any money to pay you. It's a short film. So why don't you take producer credit? Ronnie. So I said, cool, someone's offering me producer credit. But either way, I would have done the film. I wanted to do the film. And I think I was amazed by the fact that someone as young as Shan had this kind of understanding, which translated beautifully into the story. One is to be able to understand, the other is to make you understand, which the screenplay did when I read it.
Super. So there is one question which I want to direct to all the makers here. And I'm going to start with Prateek, because Prateek, as we speak, your film is premiering. You clearly look like a man who's in two places.
I'm so sorry for that.
What's going on in your head? How are you feeling? Are you nervous, excited? What are you thinking?
I mean, everything I'm thinking, I can't hold the thought together for like 5 minutes. No, but yeah, because there's so many things of how this happens, who watches it, where there's so many questions we want to see if it plays well and all that. But very exciting, yeah, because to have such a big audience is amazing. Have them all together, in a festival, we'll have a 300, 500, 2,000, 8,000, 10,000, this can potentially go into many, many more thousands. Very exciting, very distracting, I know, but very exciting.
Not to worry. For those of us who've seen Evalio, we can tell you it's a film that everyone must watch. It's on at the festival for the next 24 hours. So guys, once this chat is over, make sure you go watch Prateek's film. Arun, you want to come in here and talk to us about your film, Nasir?
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Arun Karthik from Coimbatore. So Nasir is my second feature, and it's about a sari salesman called Nasir. It's an adaptation of a short story in Tamil, and it is made in Coimbatore, which is my hometown. And the film is pretty much one day in his life, whatever happens on that day. So yeah, it's nice to have it on this platform, especially in such a lockdown time, where people are, people are all watching, a lot of stuff, and they're almost ready, to see whatever you want to give them to watch. So I'm interested to know, how many people would actually watch, and what would their feelings be like? How would they react to the outer world when you're locked in? What kind of thoughts, how do you relate to this character in such a situation? Do you introspect?
Absolutely. And both these films actually all the more relevant at the times that we're in. Shobha?
Yeah, because I'll ask Prateek and Arun, the same question. Pratik, I mean, your film has played, I mean, it premiered in Pingyao. It had the international premiere there. And your film played in Rotterdam. I mean, in India, we can relate to these characters and the situations. But when you show it to an audience outside of India, I mean, do you get the same sort of instant response, or do they need time to figure out what's going on? I mean, what has been your experience? Pratik first.
In my experience, China was kind of interesting because they have a monkey king in their mythology, so
Okay,
it
yeah.
sort of works at that level. And also, this contract labor is everywhere, so it's not really in that sense of talking about an Indian aesthetic or something, but it is talking about that larger kind of gig economy of a contract system, which is prevalent actually everywhere. So when we were in Hong Kong also, because of the recent protest and all, it had a different kind of a interest in the film, you know, because this everybody there, it's a time of friction, I think, world over. And so that has created, I think, even audience across the place where we have played. That's been my experience.
Arun?
Yeah, to my surprise, I did not encounter an audience where they came and asked me any doubts as to why this was like this, or we couldn't understand this particular specific or anything. You know, it was pretty much clear that people understood by the way they reacted to us in the Q&A and post discussions after the screening and all that. So I think maybe there are minorities everywhere around the world, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their social strata and class. There are the marginalized and the migrants and the minorities. So in a way, the film actually speaks to everybody in a kind of a universal, way. So I did not, yeah, there's no confusion of any sort regarding the theme or anything with the audience.
Yes, Tuti.
Okay, I think it's important that, the 4 films that are being showcased, we at least talk about those. So we've had Pradeep talk about Ivaleu and Arun who's spoken about Naseer. Now to Team Awake, I think this was such an interesting short film because especially the theme of possessiveness in love. I think it came out so beautifully. So I'm being careful in not revealing what exactly happens in that short film, but why don't you tell us about it?
I mean, firstly, I actually want to first talk about VR1 because I think it's something very historic that is happening for the first time. You see, all these festivals are so big and such big brands and have been existing for 30, 40, 50 years. And it's really amazing how everybody decided to do something together, and that's that's a very big thing, I feel. And for Mami to be part of those 20, and the festivals that are part of it are the best of the best festivals of the world. So I love that this is happening, firstly. And about Awake, actually, instead of telling about the film, I would like to tell you the seed of the film. So, as a filmmaker, you're always trying to make your film and you're like, nahi ban rahi, and then you have phases of depression and all that shit is going on. So that was happening with me. And the more I was going that phase, my wife was getting more and more protective of me. But I knew at the same time that tomorrow when the film starts, I will not belong to her. I will actually belong to the film because I'll be gone for that 1.5 year period. So that's where this idea came in, that when is the relationship working? Like when a man is technically in the marriage or at what point are you technically in the marriage? When you are down or when you're out and about? And are you not in the marriage in both times? So it's kind of a comment on patriarchy. It's a kind of a comment on relationships, and it explores themes of love and love versus control and control versus dependence, and the rest I think the film will speak. Maybe Vikram can say something.
Vikram, yes, board member, also producer of Awake.
Atul and me have known each other for a very, very long time. He was my associate on Lutera, also my casting director. So came with the script. I loved it. I said, yes, great. I'm doing it. In about 10 minutes. A couple of days later, he said, I'm casting Ishika in the film. I said, oh, okay. Suvidha. But I think I love both of them too much for me to be able to. I said, yeah, I'm putting my hands up. I'm saying it's your call. whatever you know, whatever for the film, whatever's best for the film. And it's been a long time coming, I think, on the film. I think Atul and Naveen we shot in, I think, 2014 or something, and you know, it's now, and it's been quite a journey. I think Atul can actually do a masterclass on this film of like that first cut and the story, and not just in terms of length or anything, just in terms of how a story changes when you kind of like, you know, when you spend time on the edit and stuff like doing it. So yeah, so as a producer, I'm super proud of the film, super proud of the actress, this one girl. As a board member, there's a saying in the Mami board, which, you know, in our WhatsApp group, that in Sriti Kiran we trust. So whatever she says, I think is we go with that. And the moment she said that, you know, we want to be part of it, we've been selected for you know, we are the festival, the only Indian festival for VR1. We all said this is fantastic, great, I think. And I think the selection of films is outstanding. I think Naseer and Iba Liu is something I've been championing for a long time. I think they're both outstanding feature films, and I'm so happy that they're out there for a, you know, for a global audience. And of course, for me, Awake, selfishly for me, yes, but even Nutcut, I feel that, you know, the fact that it's a great representation. So yeah, I'm thrilled as a board member, producer, Indian film watcher. I'm just thrilled that this is happening.
Super. Shehbaz?
Yeah, Ishika, I mean, how easy or tough was this transition from being behind the camera to, you know, playing a role in front of the camera? And is this a career switch that you're thinking of?
Atul knows exactly how tough it was. I think the first time we actually would chat a lot about the script in little detail and feedback, and I have a habit of giving my opinion even when it's not needed. So we were doing a lot of back and forth, and then one day he just said, will you audition for me? And then I think I avoided him for maybe a week or 3 weeks or something like that. But it was there was something about being able to do something that you're fearful of. And I think for me, it was that challenge. And Atul was very, very good at just, I don't think we spoke anything about the character when we filmed eventually. He kind of convinced me. He just said, let's talk, let's chat, let's hang. And he got me really comfortable with certain situations. And I think once he felt that I could take it on, and be in front of the camera, I don't think we didn't do an audition. We would just spend time together, and we just, I think, fixed a date, and then we said we're rolling on this date. And I think that one day I kind of just blocked everything out of my head. So I didn't know I could do that, because I was extremely I feel I'm a shy person, but and it takes a lot to be in front of the camera and let go, you know, to have people that you know who are probably directing you. There's Siddharth Dwan, who's the cinematographer. So these are friends, and you know, I constantly have this feeling that somebody is watching you. So it was it was very hard, to be honest. But it went seamlessly, I think.
A brief supplementary. I mean, is character a photographer because you agreed to play the role, or was it written as a photographer?
So poor Atul had a lot of changes made because it was me eventually, apart from convincing producer to changing her to be a photographer, I think even to having it into English, and changing the character's name as well. We did a lot, he did a lot of little changes in the script to make it easier for me to sort of put myself in those situations, and we get the role, you know, of what was demanded. Is it going to be something that I'm going to change? I love what I do as a photographer. I love being on set. But this was fun. I have to say that it was very, very liberating at the end of the day to be able to do something that you're not comfortable doing. I mean, Vidya does it just effortlessly, you know, she just cruises in. Yeah, and beautifully. But it was fun. It was fun at the end once it was completed. Yes, thank you.
You know, talking about Vidya's effortlessness, you know, my next question is, of course, to Team Nutcut, Vidya and Shan. This is such an important film, especially because, you know, we have a habit of pointing outside, at the outside world, when we talk about patriarchy, saying, uske wajah se hua hoga, TV mein dekha hoga, TV band kara do, you know, bahar se kahin seekha hoga. But how we internalize it, now this is a film where the kids, and I remember when the film starts and there are those scenes with the kids, I didn't know how to react. I was angry, and yet I knew that the kids, what they were doing was in complete innocence.
Acting out, yeah.
Yes. How was it directing the kids, Shan? And how much of direction?
Your audio is off.
Yeah, I just put it on. So yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges in this film was to direct the kids. And I think just to give you a little background about that is that the moment we first started by trying to look for a kid, and we found a gem of a kid along the process. My co-creator on the film is who's the co-writer and casting director on this film. Her name is Anukampa Harsh. So if we need to, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to repeat yourself that little bit.
Okay, so when we found the kid, he was in some remote part of India, and we decided to sort of set the entire film around this kid, because I don't write because I'm not an experienced writer or filmmaker. It was just out of instinct. So I was also learning the ropes along the way. I'm like, okay, I need to get some authenticity into this film. So the best way to do it is to sort of set it in that same city. Okay, now this was a random city in the middle of India,
There's a little problem with the audio. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Shan, are you there?
Let me try and fix this.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now
Can
we
you hear
can.
me?
Now we
Yeah.
can.
Okay.
It's
So
set in a
let
random.
me try and talk a little slower. Okay. So once we found the kid, we went to this random city in the middle of India and found a whole bunch of kids around. All of them were non-actors. And we had to start from zero to teach them firstly what is acting. Also because it is so uncomfortable stuff that the kids do, it was almost like a challenge to life. They're playing.
Audio is a problem.
Audio, I think.
Audio is a problem.
It's still a problem. Okay, I think it's my internet that's the problem.
Yes, it is your
possibly.
Mm.
Yeah, because I've also been getting. So let me try and just go on a hotspot
Yeah.
if possible.
So may I go to
Yeah,
Vidya and
Yours is a role which required this quiet strength in the film. It's not like you go all out, and yet through your kid you want to set certain wrongs right.
Yeah, and I've always wondered about these women from, for example, who not women like us, but women who can't really use their voices, who don't even probably know they have a voice, given the patriarchal family setup that they come from. So I've always wondered about these women. So I was it took me a little bit of time to get a hang of the person, because she says very little, but she communicates very clearly to her child. And that's why she uses the device of a story. And it's so beautiful, because I think, like I said before, there's so much conversation, right, about how can we bring up children the right way, so that, we keep talking about changing bringing up boys to respect women. But what do you do? Because even the parents are products of conditioning. We are conditioned in the patriarchal mindset. Even if, even if you're a feminist, unknowingly, there are parts of you that have not been able to rid themselves of that patriarchal mindset. So I think it was very interesting. I had very little to say, but she's also grappling. She's making up the story as she goes along, just to be able to teach this child what he needs to know, so that he does not turn out to be like the rest of the men in her life.
Yeah.
See,
And sorry, just
carry on.
hear me better now. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the first thing, just to add to what she's saying, is just to talk about patriarchy a bit. Now, in India, all the reforms that we have, everything that we have for women, whenever it's all palliative reform. So you have a women's rights committee, you have all of this, but nobody tackles the fact that this is not a women's problem. This is a men's problem, and maybe they should form a committee for men for that. So I think a certain incident that happened, which was really popular in the news, sort of triggered this story to be written, and it was primarily, just to sort of sum it up in one line, it is a male problem, not a female problem, and hence, in order to change internalized patriarchy, it needs to start at the kids level. Okay, so that was me adding to what she was saying. And just to talk a little bit about the kids and directing the kids, it was really fun. It taught me, so Anukampa was my co-creator. She was the acting coach on the film. And so it taught me firstly how acting works. And it was because it is, a child's mind is sort of so pure, and you can fill it up with, you can sort of ask them to sort of do a little more, because as adults, we have a few more blocks in our head, etc., etc. So I've experienced that. It was an honor to experience that on a first film in that sense. And the only thing we did was ensure that the children were protected from whatever bad things that the characters themselves were doing. Yeah.
And you have the cutest kid in the film, by the way.
Adorable.
Adorable.
Arun,
And
my question to you is, I mean, your first film, Silva Puranam, was almost experimental. It played around with style and images. This one is more straightforward. So was this like a conscious sort of shift from that, stylistically from the earlier film to this one, where it's more naturalistic, more direct in terms of what you're showing us?
Actually, I had when I chose to film this short story, I thought it was a natural continuation from my previous film, in the sense that the previous film was also about understanding a character and his neighborhood, and then we had to play with the form because of the nature of the story and the and what I wanted to say within the first film about loneliness, about voyeurism, and so the structural identity of the film mattered a lot in the first film. But in this case, I was dealing with a short story which already had a very inherent form. The short story had a very nice form of, like, it starts in that morning and it almost ends in the night. So I didn't want to fiddle around too much with that. So I kind of, in most cases, I followed the pointers that I received from the story. Vis-a-vis even the details as to how many BDs Nasir would smoke in a day, and how many cups of chai he would drink, as to how is he sleeping, what is his posture of his sleep. So, and the short story was nicely written in second person. So I had to find the cinematic equivalent of such devices.
The distance,
yeah. So it is interesting that you sometimes have a reference point when you're adapting, where you can use that as a springboard and start imagining things from. So it was not conscious decision to do it this way or that way. I just applied myself to the story that I had and what the story meant, and we kind of just went ahead with that.
And did you work with the writer of the story on the script?
No.
With Dilip Kumar?
No. I just took his story, and he also preferred it that way.
But he's a Gujarati origin Tamil writer.
Yeah, very interesting. Actually. Yeah. He was born in Coimbatore. Coimbatore has a large Gujarati and Marwadi population. So because of the cotton mills and all of that. So he has never had schooling. Maybe he studied until 5th or 6th standard, and incidentally in the same school that I also studied, which is the same school that comes in the film also, where Nasir goes to deliver lunchbox to his this thing. So he worked as a boy who puts kaja. I mean, he worked in a small cloth shop when he was 8 or 9. I mean, when he was in 8 or 9, and until about 12, 13, he worked there. And then he had to do all small menial tasks in the bazaar streets and all that. And at that time, he had a friend. And this friend was actually killed later in the Coimbatore bomb blast in the aftermath riots. And that is when Dilip Kumar, by now he had already become a writer in Tamil, because right from his childhood, he was fascinated with the language Tamil, and he started reading a lot of magazines and literature, and then he wanted to like write his experiences. So it was interesting that he gathered all his experience of childhood around the Coimbatore city and the bazaar streets, and based on the reference that he had of this living person who's now no more, due to the bomb blast and all of that, he wrote this story in 99. It was published in 99. And one day I had read this short story in 2013, actually, before I made my first feature. And that time itself, I told the writer that someday I will make a film out of this. And after my first film, I had actually had other plans. I was writing another screenplay. We were almost ready to, make that film and all that. That is when in 2016, in the September, there was a riot in Coimbatore. And I, at that time, had a small kiosk to sell filter coffee and sugarcane juice and all that. And so many, and around 700, 800 right-wing extremists, they stormed onto the streets and they started breaking down shops. They wanted to break down all the Muslim shops, but they had no clue as to whose shop what was and all that. So they're breaking down everything, and they broke my shop also. And there are so many other hundreds of shops they broke down. And I saw this reality in front of me, and I thought, okay, I should be talking about this. Why am I writing a story which I could probably do it at a different time? This is something that is, we've all been reading right from 2013, 14 as to what is happening, in this country, and the sudden spur of, public violence and mob violence and all of that. And there I was, encountering such a violent atmosphere right in front of my eyes, and now I was obsessed with the short story that I had read 2-3 years back, and I thought I should be doing this. This is like a sign, And then I immediately started moving into that ghetto where the story was actually set, the short story, and I lived there for 3 years, writing the screenplay, understanding that nuances. And actually, I live 15 kilometers away from the city, but then I didn't want to be a visitor to my location. I like to live there and feel like, at least to a little bit, try to feel how your characters live and feel and all that. That is how it started, actually, the transition from the written word to the filmed image.
Right. Okay, and now a quick reminder to everyone who's watching this live feed. If you have any questions, we are going to keep time separate at the end of this discussion to take those. So make sure you type it in the comment section. And now to everyone who's here. So we have actresses, directors, filmmakers, curators, and of course, as film critics, me and Shoaib, we're missing cinema halls. Like how? Okay. Couple of months back, if people had said you're going to have this major film festival, but online, physical festivals are going to get cancelled, none of us would have wanted to believe it. Vidya, starting with you, and I'd want everyone to answer this. Your major next big release is also heading for an OTT release. I know we're doing what we can in this year to make the most of it, but how do you feel about digital release of a film?
I wouldn't have believed it if you had told me that there's going to be a digital festival and Nakkhat's going to show on that festival, and I would have said, because it was inconceivable. So I think, but I'm really happy that We Are One is happening, that, Mami is is one of the 21 film festivals, and that Nakkhat is showing, and that, this is going to open up the film to a world audience even more than a physical space could have. So that's very, very exciting. I think we're, like you said, we're all trying to make the most of our situation. And I go to the theater. I used to go to the theater once every week on the weekend, and that's of course changed. But I think, you will, when cinemas open up, people will go back to the theaters, but there is content that it's wonderful to just sit at home and watch. You have that option today. And I think now more than ever, the OTT platforms, or, whatever the content that is available digitally is really valuable. Because a lot of this would not probably get seen in cinemas, would not have a chance in the cinemas. So I think it's lovely. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Vikram, you want to come in here and the other filmmakers?
I've been a fan of the OTT space for a while. I think there's ways of looking. When you look at it, yes, I mean, of course, would I want to make every film for the movie theater? 100%. Would I want to see every film in a movie theater? 1000%. I wish I had seen Naseer in a movie theater. It's one of those films where you really wanted to be able to, every film, becomes greater and better, and just, you more memorable when you see it in a movie theater. I mean, but having said that, I think we don't have enough theaters. We have too many films. Each film doesn't get a chance to actually sort of like live its life in the theater, especially the indie films, especially the kind of films that we are talking about and we love to make and we love to be a part of. Need 3, 4, 5 weeks in a movie theater for the audience to know about it and to sort of like, and we don't get that, right? So what the OTT gives us is it gives you sort of day and date release, 190 countries, show timings of your choice, you know, and I think that convenience for the audience is something that you just cannot buy in a movie theater. So yes, the purist in me wants to go to the movie theater and wants to have every film come out there, but the practicalist in me, you know, I feel that the OTT is going to be the way to go for a certain kind of cinema, unless we completely rejig our entire distribution system. This is our future. My next film is for Netflix anyway. That was decided even before pre-COVID,
Right.
because I figure that that's the audience that I'm sort of making it for.
Atul, Prateek, Shan, you want to weigh in on this?
I think Prateek and Arun have share a cinematographer. So what does your cinematographer feel about films showing on, you know, in this format instead of, you know, on the big screen? Have you spoken to him, Arun and Prateek?
Arun, you want to say something?
You go on, Pradeep.
Yeah.
No, yeah, see, it's clear. Everybody, we all want the film to be seen on the big screen. The experiences, it's not just about the technical quality of sound and image, but also this collective viewing of a film. I think that is a very, it's a special experience, and in watching it individually, it's a different kind of an experience. So, and there's a certain ritualistic thing about going to a theater, lights going down, you know, you watching. So we all aspire to that. We'll always aspire to that, I think. But like even Somo, like Somananda, he feels that the fact that these two films, Nasir and Eve, if they're not seen by people, if we cannot get them out at this point of time in our current affairs, in our history, then there is no point of making a film like this. You know, why go through the pain? So if we are not restricted to a festival, good festival, bad festival, big festival, small festival, show it everywhere. But it has to be seen at a much wider democratic scale, which theaters which were doing that in some time ago, but for indie films, it's always been a little more difficult. And now I think with digital, it is surely getting more democratized in terms of consumption. Experience, we'll see. Consumption, yes.
I was anyway getting
I
used
think
to
also
that our work is not going to be seen widely in many theaters, because you know that maybe in few festival screens you would watch it in the theaters, and probably if you get a limited release you'll watch it in a few screens. But I have grown up in an era where you're used to watching films in the laptop and nowadays on mobile phones also. Actually, and I've also come to terms with facts that I just want the work to be seen, regardless of, I mean, of course I would prefer a larger screen, but regardless of resolution, regardless of the size of the screen, regardless of there being a 5.1 and all of that, I think that there are aspects in cinema and thought that transcends these notions, you know, and the technology today has actually enabled for you to have a relationship with the work, not necessarily in the way that you did a few years before. So habits die hard. There's a whole lot of generation who've kind of gotten used to newer devices and all of that, and I want to accept that kind of reality also. And I'd be up for any day theatrical screening, and we make our DCPs, and you think of the theatrical screen also when you're framing the image and how it's going to look and all that. But then, given that, I have actually seen most of the films that has inspired me and all that in smaller screens, and I have loved those films, and I actually revisit them often. So this whole transition or this demarcation of theatrical screen versus your smaller laptop, even a mobile phone, you know, I think there is something to the power of thought and to the image and sound that actually can transcend these physical boundaries. So which is why I was totally up for this online festival, VR1, where it doesn't matter, yeah. Even if somebody is going to turn on the 240p option in YouTube and is going to watch my film, I would still be okay, I guess. Maybe not in the first film, but now I think I'd be okay. Just watch it.
Shan and Atul, you've made short films. I think OTTs and digital releases in that sense actually help you.
Yeah.
Atul, you go first.
Go ahead, Shan.
Okay, so I feel, I mean, we made the film for the cinemas as well, and we spent time on it, keeping in mind that we want to give them the best experience, the audience the best experience. But obviously, when we went into it, we knew that the eventual home for it is going to be an OTT or a digital platform. And I think also what has happened with COVID right now is that I think, like what Vikram was saying, there's a little, like he's making a film for an audience which is on Netflix, right? You find them on Netflix. Increasingly, I think because of this lockdown situation, at least, what we're going to do is we're going to find a lot of changing behaviors. And a post-COVID world would be one in which OTT would be having way more sort of buyers for it, etc. So we, like Arun was saying, it is our eventual reality. We have to just deal with that. And to a point that, like most indie films also just get a theatrical run only during the film festival time. It's very difficult to even get distribution eventually. So I think OTT is a place where you're giving a consumer an experience the way he wishes to get the experience, even if that means he has to pause your film. Right? That's the most annoying thing, if somebody has to pause your film, but we have to accept that that's the way it is. Yeah.
Atul?
So, see, as much as we love theater, I just feel it's very difficult to get films made. It's just very, very difficult because when you're making a film for cinema, there are too many factors involved. You need a couple of names and actors so for it to get a theatrical release, and there are only so many actors that guarantee that. Then there is also huge, as much as the cost of production as is the cost of marketing. So it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, the cost. So sometimes when you want to tell stories which are slightly not for the majority, let's say, for lack of a better word, it's very difficult to find a producer, or very difficult to find, which is what the digital platform has done for us. I think a lot of us who want to tell certain stories, we can now do it as a feature film, which was very, very difficult to do earlier. Mainly because everybody said everything, I just want to add this.
Yeah, just before I come to Smriti, I have I'll ask Vidya a question. One interesting thing in Natkhat is that your character does not have a name. She's Sonu ki maa. Something that we were used to seeing in the 70s and 80s, Pinky ki maa, Raju ki maa, the woman did not have an identity. Did you consider giving her a name, Shan? And
actually, I'll allow Shan to answer this.
So she had a name.
She had a
name. It was the name was Surekha.
Okay.
And it just never got mentioned as such. She not just had a name; she had a huge history, big character sketch, lots of things that we had loaded her up with, a whole life story, etc. Yeah, but it was Surekha.
And I think also the focus here was
Can you hear me?
her role as the mother.
Yeah.
So
that's her identity.
That is her primary identity.
Yeah. And Smriti, did you consider other films as well before you narrowed down the list to 4, or did you have this number in mind from the word go, or did you?
The thing is that there was only one film that, like the first 5 films that we had on the roster, only one film said no, because it got a deal with OTT. Okay. And so we didn't come on board, but otherwise all the films that we wanted, there was no B list that we had to go to.
Okay.
So this is it. And I just want to add to the conversation and say that, the OTT experience and the experience of watching films in theater, they're not substitutes for each other. Also, this entire thing of that OTT is killing theaters and all of that, you're not putting a ball and chain around people's necks and telling them to watch streaming platforms. They're making a conscious choice to watch it, to consume. This conversation was happening before, we were hit by the pandemic. And the thing, even with film festivals, even the kind of experience that you get when you go to the theater, it cannot, you can't, we've been talking for 70 years now that when video came, when something else came, when another thing came, everybody is talking about how, theaters are in danger and everyone's crying about it. But, that's not going to happen because you really can't, like film festivals, for example, you can't do a digital film festival unless until you have a hook like this, that you have 21 film festivals coming together. But otherwise, what you're trying to create at a film festival is the bricks and mortar nature of that
Lost you there. Okay.
Am I back?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that basically the thing is that the intrinsic nature of a film festival is that it happens on ground, so that people get to meet. People get to also talk to people that are not accessible to them. People watch movies. It's democratic, egalitarian. It naturally creates that kind of experience for you where you can interact with each other. And with the digital festival, frankly speaking, I feel that what VR1 has done should be done every year. Like one annual festival should happen, because just like everybody said, the kind of reach that the films are going to get, it's like 21 festivals coming together to push your film out.
Yeah.
Because how do you? It'll go into the roster of each and every country. The program is going to be pushed out by each festival to the audience in their country, and they're going to be able to choose whether they want to watch this or not. So it's the collective strength of 21 institutions coming together to promote 100 films and the conversations that are there. So we should do this annually in any case. And I also want to say that two things that I really feel that people should show kindness towards. This is a very difficult time. Everyone is suffering. Everyone is going through things that we can't think about, their individual circumstances. So if festivals can let go of the ego and premiere statuses and what has come on digital and what has come somewhere else for just 1 year, then they should do it, because I think it's in very poor taste to make filmmakers right now who are struggling for an audience, struggling for space, struggling for all sorts of things, to bring in these petty things like who's premiering where, whether the digital premiere has happened, we will not play you. So I think that's in very poor taste. And the other thing is that if producers have decided to go to OTT, like every person wants a theatrical release, right? But if they've decided to go to a OTT platform, they might have decided because they have to run an office. Like, how do you want 200 people to be unemployed because you're not saving, a not-for-profit theater? Like, we need to see this in perspective, that why is there so much of noise about people choosing to go to an OTT platform? You have to keep the wheels turning, and in any which way that you can protect that, I think people should be allowed to do that without judgment.
Absolutely. I think you've covered all major points. What's happening with Mami this year, Smriti? You're doing such a fab job with curating this.
See, basically the thing is, and Vikram would tell you that we do have discussions every 15 to 20 days in terms of mapping out what we can do. But the thing is, the festival dates are in November. And we don't really know what our situation would be. We would have to take a call closer. And by closer, I mean July. You'll have to decide whether you're going to have an on-ground festival. If you change it around a little bit, what kind of version would that festival be? But I mean, the situation in India, we've not even peaked as yet. So I don't know how this is going to pan out. So no decision has been taken right now, but if we can't do a festival that makes sense, then we rather postpone it. There's no point in ticking a box and doing a festival for the sake of it. And what we can assure you of is that we will give every concession possible to every filmmaker who submitted films to us, and not put boundaries and obstacles in front of them in terms of participation, in terms of the kind of, we put our might behind every one of our storytellers. That I can assure you.
Super. So there are 10 of us. I wish this conversation could continue. We wanted all of you to speak more and continue this conversation, but we are glad. I think the one thing that's come out of this discussion is we are glad that VR1 Global Film Festival is happening. We are super, super excited for the 4 films that are representing India here. So thank you so much to the filmmakers, Arun, Prateek, Atul and Shan for making these films, Smriti for curating it. Vikram, thank you for joining us, and Ishika and Vidya. You guys are fabulous. Vidya, looking forward to your next big release. And Ishika,
Thank you.
I'm happy to know you're enjoying your stint in front of the camera. And I hope in the lockdown you'll read a couple of more scripts and we probably see you on the big screen again. Yeah. Smriti,
Cast Ishika.
I want to thank you, Stuti.
Produce more. Pivot into things, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sable and
Bye-bye.
Smriti.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye,
And thank
guys.
you everyone who joined us for this live stream. Thank you. Looking
Thanks.
forward to your films, and I hope all of you watch these films as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.